Age movement. Is it a new world order or an ancient, sinister scheme? Well, thank you and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. The term New Age, we hear it used everywhere, in medicine, politics, education, and so on. But exactly what is the New Age?
New Age. Modern technology, the way things are moving on today.
No ideas. Probably something from the East Coast.
As in rock and roll? Maybe Hinduism or something like that?
It's time for us to take our rightful place as God on this planet.
Coming up, the first of a two-part expose on the New Age movement. Plus, an expert will join us to answer your questions on what the New Age really is. And by the way, the man-on-the-street interviews you heard just a moment ago were taken on the East Coast. Wait till we get to California. The perception is totally different. Sheila?
Why am I not surprised? Also ahead, a young woman who became fully entrenched in mind control, ESP, astrology, astral projection, and more, shares the sinister side of her New Age lifestyle. You know, I read something, Pat, that I didn't know, that New Age teachers say that at some point, those who are difficult to teach, by whom they mean the church, will all be removed from the planet.
Where are we going?
Well, taken somewhere to learn our karma and to be taught how to behave.
To be taught how to behave. Little do they know what we're going to be removed
We're going
to.
home.
All right. Well, we'll find out all about that on this program. One of our guests, by the way, Tal Brook, has written a book called When the World Will Be One. Some of the revelations in that are absolutely startling. You don't want to miss it. What's next?
Well, we wanted to find out just how much people know about the New Age movement, and so we went to the streets to ask them. Here's what some of them had to say.
Any idea what the term New Age means?
New Age? No, I haven't heard of it.
Well, I've heard of it, but no, I don't really have any idea.
I guess you mean as in surfing?
Nope, sorry.
Never heard of it?
Nope.
So I've heard the term, but I don't know what it applies to.
What does the term New Age mean? It doesn't mean anything to me.
New form of government, you know, more rights for people, women's movement, yeah, rock and roll.
New Age?
No, I haven't.
New Age movement?
No, it's new to me.
Well, it was new to me, too, a couple of years ago. As a matter of fact, somebody who was writing about it indicated that I was one of them, and I didn't even know what it was. But the truth is, I'm not, and this individual was wrong. But more and more, we found out that things that we were discussing years ago about reincarnation, about Hinduism, about some of the occultist mind control have now gotten a new name, and it's more organized than it used to be 15 or 20 or 25 years ago with Edgar Cayce and some of the people who were involved in Spiritism. But you've heard maybe of harmonic convergence, reincarnation, holistic health, higher consciousness. These are some of the buzzwords of the New Age movement. A collective ideology that embraces everything from yoga to the occult. Its proponents say the New Age movement is the true path of enlightenment, love, and peace. Is it a passing fad? Is it the beginning of a very dangerous new global religion? CBN News correspondent Dale Hurd files this report.
Eastern mysticism merges with Western capitalism in a New Age spectacle that is part trade show, part carnival sideshow. The New Age movement's annual Whole Life Expo in Los Angeles earlier this year brought together 30,000 of the movement's faithful as well as the curious. The large turnout is an indication of just how popular the New Age movement has become. But just what qualifies as New Age? Enough courses, cults, trends, and fads to take you through the alphabet several times. It's been called a constantly changing kaleidoscope that can be difficult to define, although New Agers have some ideas.
To me, the New Age movement means that we're getting into values that relate to world brotherhood, world goodwill, and right human relations.
But author and New Age expert Dave Hunt has another perspective.
Basically, it's the 4 lies in the Garden of Eden that the serpent deceived Eve with, that you don't die, there's no death, you just get recycled. God is not personal, he's a force, and we're all heading up to godhood.
Hinduism, in other words. It's the one thing that brings them all together.
Ravi Maharaj should know. Descended from a long line of Hindu spiritual masters, Maharaj was an accomplished yogi worshipped by thousands before his conversion to Christianity.
The common denominators you find in the New Age movement, regardless of what else people believe, are: one, that we are divine; two, the world is divine; three, reincarnation.
Central to New Age belief is that we are all God.
It's time for us to take our rightful place as God on this planet.
Another cornerstone of New Age belief is globalism, the idea that many of our problems could be solved if the world united under one religion and one government. It's a belief with obvious and disturbing parallels to the New Testament book of Revelation.
There's an energy that's coming on the earth, and that's why God World Tour is coming up, because there is an energy that's coming on this planet that is waking people up to peace.
There are also striking historical parallels between the peace-loving New Age movement and a not-so-peaceful social movement from another era, Nazism. History shows that Nazism came forth after a revival of the occult and Eastern mysticism had swept over Germany and Austria.
In fact, you read some of the books written by people in those days who are touting the new consciousness of the Hitler Youth, and if you just changed a few names, you would think it was the greening of America. You know, you would think it was something written about the U.S. in the 60s.
Like the New Age movement, the Nazis also spoke of creating a new man and a new social order. In the best-selling New Age manifesto, The Aquarian Conspiracy, Marilyn Ferguson writes about a leaderless but powerful network working to bring about radical change in the United States. Broader than reform, deeper than revolution, this benign conspiracy for a new human agenda has triggered the most rapid realignment in history. Another leader, Dr. Robert Mueller, says, the next stage will be our entry into the moral global stage. We are now moving fast towards the fulfillment of the visions of the great prophets, who through cosmic enlightenment saw the world as one unit. Russell Chandler is the award-winning religion editor for the Los Angeles Times and is author of the book Understanding the New Age. Chandler faults some of his fellow Christians with seeing a conspiracy plot at the end of every New Age rainbow. He believes in a more subtle danger.
All they have to do is sow these seeds, and as Marilyn Ferguson says, some of the cliques of consensus will come together, and presto ergo, after a while, what is theory is now conventional wisdom.
Chandler says a more compelling danger is the New Age movement's potential for undercutting the beliefs of right and wrong that hold Western societies together.
If all things are relative and we're God, we're caught in a morass. We're set up for either anarchy or a dictatorship.
In the final analysis, we would have two major forces in the world: the New Age movement and Christianity. The New Age movement is now absorbing everything else.
In the 1950s, the noted historian Will Durant predicted the last major conflict of Western history would not be between communism and democracy, but between the Eastern religions and historic Christianity. If Durant's prediction is correct, the final conflict of the West may have already begun, as New Age thought continues to infiltrate all levels of American life. We'll show you the extent of that infiltration in our next report. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. Just a note on Adolf Hitler. You know, William Shirer's monumental book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich indicated that Adolf Hitler was demonized. This is a book I'm quoting from Inside the New Age Nightmare, and he said the occult roots of Nazism. And he says one of the most overlooked facts in history is the occultic foundation of the Nazi regime. Hitler's primary mentor, Dietrich Eckart, was the high priest of the Thule Society, a powerful, secret European occult society dating back many centuries. And in the lineage back to its roots, there were supposedly universal secrets to be found to revive the descendants of a master race of supermen once again in a new millennium. Hitler called the New World Era the Third Reich, the 1,000-year Reich. In initiating Hitler into the innermost levels of the Thule Society, Dietrich Eckart unleashed what he perceived as a sovereign occult force. Now here's what he wrote, and I'm quoting. Follow Hitler. He will dance, but it is I who have called the tune. We give him the means of communication with them, capital T. Do not mourn for me. I will have influenced history more than any other German. And then it indicates beyond here that Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, was profoundly steeped in occultism. Now, we are just celebrating the 50th anniversary, or lamenting, I should say, the 50th anniversary of the outbreak of World War II. 50 million people lost their lives. Europe was laid waste by this madman who clearly was in touch with some kind of higher occult power and believed that he was going to destroy the Jews, the mental defectives, other people in Europe, to bring about an Aryan super race. Well, joining us right now is a man on the cutting edge of exposing the deception of what the modern, 50 years later, the modern New Age movement. And no one is better qualified to do it than he, because at one time he was the top Western disciple of India's most powerful guru, Sai Baba. And please welcome to the 700 Club, from Mill Valley, California, the author of a book called When the World Will Be as One, Tal Brooks. Tal, it's good to have you with us.
Great to be with you.
Sai Baba. Not too many of us have heard of Sai Baba. What could he do? What was he?
Well, in India, he's got a following of 20 million. He just hasn't been over here to America. He's not one of our import items. But the day I met him, he knew who I was. He materialized a handful of ash, said, eat it, it's going to cure you of illness. I think we talked about this a little last year.
A handful of what?
Ash, out of nowhere. Yeah, it's called vibhuti. And
Right.
then by the time I'd been with him for 2 years, I'd seen all kinds of things. I mean, within months of my meeting him, Pat, Newsweek magazine talked about him not turning water into wine like Jesus did, but water into gasoline, where his car ran out on a South Indian desert. He sent people to the well. He touched it as they poured it into the tank, and everyone smelled gasoline, and he drove off. So he's famous around India for having a number of paranormal powers.
You said in your book, When the World Will Be One, that Sai Baba wasn't even there, that there was something there instead of him. What's there?
Well, I believe that he's one of a handful of people who is really especially demonically possessed. I call it a state of perfect possession, where nobody is home. You know, when C.S. Lewis wrote his third trilogy, or second one, he talks about Weston, a Cambridge physicist, who was devil-possessed, but the original inhabitant had been blowtorched out. And I think that some of these guys are in a class of possession that's way beyond anything we've seen. I think Sai Baba is one of them.
They call them ascended masters?
Okay, that's what the theosophists and people like Elizabeth Clare Prophet call some of these gurus, yeah.
What are they really? What you're saying is they are possessed by not just little ordinary spirits, by super
Some
demons?
of Satan's generals, yeah. Ascended masters, though, people that are channeling today, people like Elizabeth Clare Prophet and J.Z. Knight, are trying to channel these ascended masters. So presumably they're in the non-physical world. But they're demons is what they are. I mean, biblically, that's what the things are.
So what you're saying is these guys aren't fakers. You know, most people that do levitation and all these games, they're nothing but they're using mirrors and recordings and they're fakes. But you said there's nothing fake about it.
Well, I've talked to Danny Corm and some other people who could probably duplicate some of the things that Baba has done, but some of them I think they would have serious problems duplicating. I mean, when I was liaison when the Canadian ambassador came by unannounced. He appeared, Sai Baba, with the brother of Prime Minister Trudeau, spent 3 hours with these guys, told them facts from their past, touched the college ring of one of them, and the metal changed, and the one thing, and the gems changed, and the scratches remained the same on the ring. And these people left shaking 2 days later. And then higher social circles around Canada, rumors about Sai Baba and interest spread. So there's a lot of people going over there to India to see him.
All right, very interesting. Sheila?
We have a gentleman with a question. Perhaps, sir, you can introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name's Wes Kubitz. The question is, are the mainline Christian denominations here in the United States and abroad being affected or infiltrated at this time by the New Age movement?
Okay, Tal?
The answer to that one is yes.
All right. Sheila, here in the studio.
Yes, I'm here with a lovely lady, and we're both firmly in our bodies. Thank you very much. Perhaps you can introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name is Jeanette Mincer, and I think you've answered my question in a way, and I watch your, television thing all the time. My sister is in reincarnation, and I'm just...
I did a little paper about why reincarnation is not a Christian concept.
Yeah.
It goes against everything that Jesus and the apostles taught and everything in the Old Testament. But tell us about what you know about reincarnation.
Well, I mean, it began in Babylon with Nimrod saying that he'd be reborn through his wife Semiramis, and then you had the...
Well, up next, ladies and gentlemen, eerie voices, things that go bump in the night, everyday occurrences for a young mother steeped in the New Age movement. Right after this, stay tuned. Tal.
There is no typical member of the 700 Club. They're young and old, from the city and from the country, but they all have one thing in common. Every member of the 700 Club cares enough to care for others. Call now and become a member of the 700 Club. All it takes is 50 cents a day, $15 a month. Nowhere does so little do so much good. Call now and help us help others. We're counting on you.
To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. On November 17th and 18th, CBN will host its second Vietnam Veterans Conference, a time to talk about resentment, unforgiveness, and the pain of losing buddies. Hear featured speakers, vets like you who feel things only understood by those who were there. For information, call CBN Conferences at 804-523-7025. The CBN Vietnam Veterans Conference, where wounds can be healed forever.
Movement like Hindu, maybe, or Buddha for New Age. People believe in, new theories, things like that.
Dealing with the metaphysical world. It's an awareness that other than what we actually see in today's date. It's been around a long, long time. We're just aware of it. No such thing as New Age. It's old.
Well, Pam Wheaton's introduction into the occult started with a simple fascination with astrology as a teen, where her fascination grew and became an obsession with mind power that almost destroyed her.
I felt that I was in control. My ego was real inflated, and I felt very powerful. I just felt that I was a very far advanced soul at that time, that I felt that I had found a further advanced religion than Christianity.
For Pam Wheaton, spiritual life was a journey full of discovery. Even though she'd become a Christian at an early age, she believed she could embrace all philosophies. Pam read all the books she could find on astrology, learned to read minds and tell the future. But still, she hadn't accomplished her greatest spiritual goal of astral projection. That is, until one dark night while she was lying in bed.
And I was in a catatonic state, a paralyzed state, and I knew from reading about other people's experiences this was the state to be in to astral project. And I heard the door downstairs open and someone walk up the stairs. My bedroom door was opened and the spirit came in. I knew it was right beside my bed. I couldn't turn my head and look. I couldn't move. But as soon as it came beside my bed, I left my body. And I traveled. I remember traveling at the level of the streetlights. I could go through the walls and into people's houses while going through the door. I was floating.
Pam's interest in the supernatural had begun at age 14 when she bought her first astrology book. She was thrilled with her discovery and soon developed a thirst for psychic power. She left high school and started working as a waitress. It was there she discovered how to use mind power to her advantage.
When I'd be standing at someone's table and waiting for them to tell me what they want, I would fill in my pad of paper and write down what they want. With my thoughts, I would say chicken dinner, iced tea. And I would just concentrate on that, looking at them, trying to implant that thought in their mind, and then they would just almost involuntarily go, well, I guess I'll have the chicken dinner and iced tea.
As Pam's supernatural power grew, the effect on her physical life was astounding. Time after time, she was in serious car wrecks, but on each occasion, she walked away without a scratch.
And I thought that this is karma. I thought I was indestructible, and that I had built up so much personal power, and I thought I was advanced in the scale of karma to the point where, I I couldn't die.
About this time, a friend gave Pam a book about the supernatural called The Beautiful Side of Evil.
I looked at that book and it looked good to me, and I read it. But when I read the back of it, it was such conviction from the Lord, because I had always believed that everything I believed in went along with the Bible, that they didn't contradict, you just add them all together. Well, this book showed me with scripture after scripture that all these things are wrong. Sorcery is wrong, and astrology is wrong, that they were evil, and I did not know that.
Pam's philosophy was shattered. For years, she'd thought that all spiritual experiences would lead to truth. Now, she was totally confused, not knowing what to believe. Also, Pam had been a heavy drug user for more than 10 years and was frequently stoned. On one of those days, she was out driving with her son, Mac, when she totally lost control of her van. This time, Pam didn't escape injury, and she was devastated to learn that her son's leg had been badly crushed. As surgeons fought to save Mac's leg, a battle was also raging inside of Pam.
How can I ever go back to my way of life and think that I'm so powerful and that I'm so, it's so far advanced spiritually, and when I'm nothing? Look what I've done to my son. I could have killed him. I could have crippled him for life.
Eventually, Mac did make a total recovery, but Pam couldn't forget the horror of what might have been. Under a cloud of guilt, she began to question why she'd had the accident and for what reason her life had been spared. It was then that something wonderful happened.
And suddenly I looked over in the corner of the room. There was a presence there. There was someone there, and it seemed a very warm person, and I knew it was Jesus. And I hadn't been expecting him. I'd never seen him before. I wasn't calling out to him, but he was there. And I said, "Jesus, is it you?" I said that out loud, and he answered me. I don't think it was audibly, but he said, "Yes, it's me, and I've been waiting for you to come back to me." And he had his arms out, and I said, "Well, Jesus, I give my life to you now, and I'll serve you the rest of my life." And I plan to do that.
Pam knew that God had spared her life and quickly recognized that in her thirst for power, she'd been deceived. The truth was that Pam had never been in control at all, but was under the power of spirits of darkness.
And I knew that that was a spirit that had come up to my room that night. And now that I'm a Christian, I know that that was a demon. And I don't know if he possessed my body while I was gone or what, but I know that it was a demon. But it scared me because I realized I'd been dealing with something, spirits that were much more powerful than I was. And I believe that God had protected me a lot from what could have happened.
Today, Pam's life has purpose, and she's discovered greater power than she'd ever known possible. You see, today, Pam has tapped into the source of all power, Jesus Christ.
What he offered is so much greater and so much more powerful and so much more good and meaningful. The things the devil gave, the ESP, it meant nothing. It didn't give me any answers to life. It just showed me that there's power there to be tapped, but it didn't give me answers to life or meaning. Jesus was the true answer. He was the reason for living.
You are energy.
I believe there's divine energy in everything. In everything.
You are God. You are divine. This is the theology of the New Age. Ram Dass, considered by many to be the spiritual leader of the New Age movement in the United States, is the former Dr. Richard Alpert, once an acclaimed Harvard University psychology professor and a close friend of drug guru Timothy Leary.
Do I believe that I am divine? Yes. I believe that you're divine and I'm divine. In fact, I feel that the New Age movement is finding the rapprochement between our divinity and our humanity.
Ram Dass says yes, he is God, but with one qualification.
I am only God if you're God too. I'm not God exclusively.
For much of his life, Ravi Maharaj also thought he was a part of God, and as a Hindu guru was worshipped by thousands. Now a Christian, he understands the attraction of the New Age movement.
It's the greatest ego trip the human race has ever known. The belief that I am God, I am divine, I am it, I am the center of the universe.
And the appealing gospel of the New Age seems to have caught on with Americans in a big way. Surveys in recent years by the Gallup organization, Newsweek, and the University of Chicago show that 1 in 4 Americans say they believe in reincarnation. 2/3 claim to have experienced extrasensory perception. 42% say they have made contact with the dead. And Forbes magazine says Americans spend almost $3.5 billion a year on New Age books, merchandise, and seminars. As a result, New Age thought has become a major force in all areas of life. It's estimated that corporations spend $4 billion a year on employee training programs, some with heavy New Age content, and sometimes forcing workers to attend. In government, the New Age rainbow has stretched all the way to the White House, as when former First Lady Nancy Reagan admitted that she sought advice for the president from an astrologer. Former House Speaker Jim Wright, before being forced out of office in an ethics probe, is said by the Washington Times to have attended the lectures of a Washington psychic and to have practiced transcendental meditation. And Rhode Island Senator Claiborne Pell made headlines this summer by proposing legislation that would have commissioned a study of the human potential, everything from ESP to biofeedback. The so-called Spoonbenders bill was co-sponsored by Senators Albert Gore and Nancy Kassebaum. After a sharp public outcry, the resolution was sent back to committee. But perhaps the most strategic area of New Age infiltration has been the minds of America's young people in the public school. A growing number of educators are using New Age meditation and guided imagery techniques in the classroom as teaching methods. One example is this guided imagery teacher's guide from Educational Services for Insight Training Seminars in Santa Monica, California. The manual instructs teachers that when evaluating their students' experiences, not to judge people's images. Students may come up with bizarre, weird, negative, sexual, violent, or otherwise confusing or unusual images. It is important not to judge whatever comes up as bad or unacceptable. The manual also documents the experiences of children taken through the program. One girl said a wise old woman appeared to her during her experience. She asked the woman, "What is the meaning of life?" She said that her wise old woman didn't say anything, but held up a mirror to her. Another student said, "I saw myself and the lady walking up an invisible stairway. The lady gave me a picture of heaven."
I think there are a lot of teachers using these kind of things, and they're not aware of what they're using.
Victoria Bear was an avid New Age follower as a 9th grade English teacher in a Texas public high school in the 70s. Now a Christian, Bear says she exposed hundreds of students to the New Age and the occult in her classes through the use of a supplemental curriculum that showed how to teach students numerology, astrology, and the use of crystals.
They are putting this into thousands of schools. I mean, I got a teaching packet, Knowing Yourself with astrology, numerology, and all that. Thousands of them went out. Thousands of them. All over the country. Turning kids on to astrology and numerology.
Bear explains how she taught creative writing exercises to her 9th graders by distributing crystals to each student and leading them in guided imagery.
I would just talk to them. I'd say, let's relax now and close your eyes, and the lights are going and the air is cool and fresh, and you're tuning into your crystal and you're a radio now. You're seeing what broadcast you're getting from the universal mind. And just start writing now. Anything that comes, colors or voices or images, and just write and write and write. And the kids would write and write and write. And some of them would hear things and see things, but they weren't light. It was darkness.
It's clear that the New Age movement has taken a quantum leap in acceptance and respectability in the 1980s. Its growing power and influence are reflected in how it has changed the way Americans think and act. This is a phenomenon which can no longer be dismissed as a passing fad. The New Age movement is today a social force to be reckoned with. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
It was the freewheeling 60s, the age of Aquarius, free love, and drugs. David and Juno Chagall, newly married, set out to get their piece of the American pie and peace of mind.
I wanted to be a big shot. I wanted to be #1, to have a lot of money.
I was searching for peace and an answer to why we're here.
The Chagalls traveled throughout Europe looking for that fame and fortune. They lived in England for a time, David writing, Juno sculpting. In their beatnik circle of friends, art was God, and marijuana made it all worthwhile.
We were courting that world and still were not accepted in it. But we enjoyed the struggle and felt as though this was all important because it was our God. We began smoking marijuana constantly. It helped us to feel good.
When their money ran out, the Chagalls came back to the States, hungry for a cause. They joined the anti-Vietnam movement and became anti-establishment militants. When that became unpopular, the Chagalls moved to what was. Enter the 70s, astrology, Ouija boards, flying saucers, and psychic phenomena. The Chagalls had found New Age.
We were looking for God. We were looking for He who had been promised from the very beginning. And all these New Age gurus promised to show us God directly. All we had to do was meditate their way, and we'd come into the great truth.
Heavily into meditation, the Chagalls began working for Roy Masters' Foundation of Human Understanding. And while Masters taught that man has an inherent capacity for perfection, all David saw was hypocrisy, lies, and wickedness, and God was nowhere to be found.
It didn't take very long. It took just a couple of weeks before I started seeing the clay feet of the guru, that he didn't treat people the way he talked about on the air, with kindness, patience, and understanding. Inside the rooms of the foundation, there was not so much kindness, patience, and understanding.
Disappointed and disillusioned, the Chagalls set out on another spiritual journey, looking for another God. They started reading the Bible along with their daily meditation. To them, the Bible was a good book. They were religious, but they had no intentions of becoming Christians. They didn't need that.
I always looked at Christians as being people that couldn't cut it and finally had to accommodate themselves to a salvation message that was for the weak, that the strong did not need Jesus Christ, only the weak did.
But the Chagalls were going to find out just who the weaklings really were. Juno picked up a Hal Lindsey book and started reading it. In the first few pages, there was a description of the crucifixion. She never got beyond that.
I realized at that moment that Jesus was God, and that everything that had been said about his death on the cross really had happened, and I had not understood it before. And at that moment, when I realized it, I accepted Christ then as God.
Ironically, David's eyes were being opened at the same time, but in a different way. He discovered he was addicted to marijuana, so he decided to ask God to help him. The answer he got was, ask Jesus. But that was out of the question, because David was an Orthodox Jew. He ran from those words and sank further into despair. 3 days later, David decided to ask Jesus.
And I said, all right, Lord, Jesus, if you are truly who the Bible says you are, and you have this power, remove this from me, and I'll serve you forever. And he removed it from me at that moment. It was a flash, an instant. I felt this weight pull off my chest. And I knew I was free of marijuana at that point. And I also knew I was a Christian forever at that point.
The Chagalls had found at last what they'd been searching for all along, the one true God. In looking back, David and Juno say in all their other spiritual conquests, they started out enthusiastic and full of hope, but ended up disappointed and disillusioned. But not so with Christ. And their message today is to those who are where they once were.
And I just would say to them that I feel for you. I know you're there. Your instincts are good. They're worthy. The only thing you have to do now is try the one thing you haven't tried. You've tried the drugs. You tried the marijuana. You've tried the chanting. You've tried the meditation. You tried the out of the body. You tried the flying saucers as salvation. Now try Jesus Christ. Ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart. Ask him to heal your soul, to heal your problems, to take you from step to step. And give him the chance that you've given all this other stuff. And I think you'll find that you won't have any more reason to look elsewhere, because he is the truth, the way, and the life. Nobody comes to God except through him.